Israel has ordered an expansion of its campaign in Lebanon, clearing the way for possible strikes in Beirut for the first time in the current phase of fighting. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Defense Minister Israel Katz directed the military to target Hezbollah operatives in the Dahya district, citing what they called repeated violations of the ceasefire and attacks on Israeli cities. Officials say this marks a shift after Israel had held back from striking in the Lebanese capital throughout the ceasefire period. The decision followed an overnight security consultation where next steps were discussed, including broader air operations with U.S. backing. Israel is now reportedly moving from a strategy of holding territory in the south to a wider campaign targeting Hezbollah command centers, weapon depots, and leadership infrastructure. On the ground, fighting continues. The IDF says one soldier was killed and 3 others were wounded in a Hezbollah drone attack in southern Lebanon. The fallen soldier was identified as Staff Sergeant Adam Tzalfati, 20 years old, of the Maglan unit. According to the military, an explosive drone struck a position near the town of Yomor, close to the Beaufort Ridge, where Israeli troops were operating. Israeli officials say Hezbollah cannot continue attacking Israel while operating from what they describe as safe havens in Beirut, as the conflict enters a more uncertain and potentially broader phase. Hezbollah continued its attacks on northern Israel last night, firing 5 rockets from Lebanon toward Israeli communities. We now go to our correspondent, Devo Klein, for more information on the ground. Devo, what's the latest on this front?
Hey there, Sivan. If you can hear me over there in the studio, those orders that you just mentioned coming from the IDF, those are coming out of the IDF headquarters. That's that sphere building that you see right behind me to the left. Now, this comes amid intense rocket fire currently hitting the north of Israel, nonstop rockets and red alert sirens all morning long. I just want to briefly recap last night's incoming news. We had 4 people injured in Bet Hillel when a Hezbollah explosive-laden drone hit the community. Ever since then, though, thankfully, by God's good graces, there have not been any injuries or damages reported in the latest barrage from earlier this morning. But the sirens have been consistent back to back, starting as early as 6:10 in the morning and going on right now as we speak. The north under fire, and behind me, the famous Kiryat, the IDF headquarters, where IDF officials are now convening to discuss this recent threat by Hezbollah. You mentioned the fallen soldier who was killed by one of these the explosive-laden drones being sent over by Hezbollah. They're attacking Israel's northern communities. So this is a very real threat on the ground, not just for IDF troops stationed in the area in southern Lebanon and northern Israel, but the communities in northern Israel. For those who have chosen not to evacuate, though we are reports that many citizens of northern Israel have evacuated their homes as a response to this latest threat. We will, of course, continue to update you on the situation here on the ground. But for now, we have no reports of injuries or damages. And that's the latest, live from Tel Aviv.
Yes, and we know that schools have also been called off in several of these border communities. Isn't that right, Devo? Okay, thank you very much to Devo for this report and this latest update. The United States and Iran are exchanging military blows once again, even as diplomatic efforts to end the war remain deadlocked, with missiles, drones, and airstrikes reported on both sides. Negotiators are struggling to salvage a deal to bring the conflict to an end. In the latest escalation, the U.S. military says it carried out a series of strikes against Iranian military targets over the weekend after an American drone was shot down over international waters. U.S. Central Command said that the attacks targeted Iranian radar sites, drone command centers, air defense systems, and launch facilities on Gorok and Keshem Islands. The Pentagon said the operation was conducted in self-defense after Iran downed a U.S. MQ-1 drone and threatened shipping lanes in the region. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps responded by claiming it targeted an airbase used in the U.S. operation. The announcement came as Kuwait reported intercepting missile and drone attacks, with air raid sirens sounding across the country. At the same time, diplomatic efforts appear to be losing momentum. Iranian media reports say Tehran is revising a draft agreement after President Donald Trump demanded tougher terms, including stronger limits on Iran's nuclear program and its stockpile of enriched uranium. Iran's chief negotiator insists Tehran will not accept any deal that fails to protect what it calls Iranian rights, highlighting the deep divisions that continue to stand in the way of a lasting agreement. Two teenage girls were wounded, one of them seriously in a terror car ramming attack yesterday evening at the Gush Etzion junction in Judea and Samaria. According to the IDF, a Palestinian terrorist drove a vehicle into pedestrians near the junction before being shot dead by a soldier from the Kfir Brigade's Nachshon battalion. Emergency teams rushed to the scene and provided medical treatment to the two injured teenagers before evacuating them to the hospital for further care. One victim was reported in serious condition. Following the attack, the IDF imposed road closures in the area while security forces carried out searches and an initial investigation. The Gush Etzion junction, located south of Jerusalem, has been the scene of numerous terror attacks over the years and remains a high-threat area for Israeli security forces. Authorities are continuing to investigate the circumstances of this attack. The annual Israel Day parade filled New York City with streets with tens of thousands of supporters of the Jewish state. Tens of thousands of people lined Fifth Avenue in Manhattan Sunday for the annual Israel Day parade, the largest celebration of Israeli culture and solidarity outside the Jewish state. Organizers said this year's event carried special significance as Jewish communities continue to face rising anti-Semitism and as Israel remains at war on multiple fronts. Participants said the event was an opportunity to show support for Israel and to reinforce the bond between Israelis and Jewish communities around the world. The parade featured marching groups, music, dancing, and a sea of Israeli and American flags as thousands of spectators filled the streets in a show of unity and pride. Anti-Israel New York City Mayor Zoran Mamdani did not attend the parade, drawing attention from becoming the first New York mayor in decades to skip the event. New York Governor Kathy Hochul joined the parade, declaring that New Yorkers must stand against hatred and intimidation directed at the Jewish community. Let's take a listen.
Today we march in defiance and also to stand up for the values that define New York State since its very beginning. We'll always be that bastion, that beacon of hope for others to be able to live the way they want to live and practice their religious belief freely from harassment. That is why this 1 hour ago, I was proud to stand with our leaders from JCRC, UJA, and other organizations to literally sign the buffer bill, the first ever in the state of New York, that says when you go to worship with your families, you should not have to endure harassment, intimidation, or hatred from anyone.
The United Nations Security Council is set to hold an emergency session in New York later tonight to discuss Israel's expanded offensive in Lebanon following the seizure of the Beaufort Castle. The meeting was requested by France. French Foreign Minister Jean-Noël Barrot said, quote, "Nothing can justify the prolongation of Israel's military operations in Lebanon and its increasingly deep occupation of Lebanese territory." And so, as Israel considers expanding its campaign in Lebanon with direction from the defense minister to strike even in Beirut, with Hezbollah continuing rocket and drone attacks into Israel, with us now to discuss all of the latest on this front is former ambassador to France, Avi Pazner, and Major in Reserves Avraham Levine from the Alma Research and Education Center. Thank you both for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
So, Avraham, let's start with you, with the big picture here. Are we seeing a shift from a more contained conflict to a broader war in Lebanon?
Yes, of course. It's very clear that we're seeing the complete collapse of the ceasefire plan between Lebanon and Israel. We're seeing increased attacks by Hezbollah, over 200 attacks in the past week, 200 waves of attacks, mostly drones and UAVs, but also rockets, as mentioned in the news a couple of minutes ago. To cities, civilian areas, as well as IDF soldiers in Israel and in South Lebanon. We're seeing IDF increasing the attacks in South Lebanon, and we're speaking about increasing attacks in Beirut as well. So we're definitely seeing the complete collapse of the ceasefire, and escalation in the situation here in the north is very clear.
Israel ordered these strikes in Beirut this morning, and that's Hezbollah's main stronghold. Is this the right move, do you think? Certainly residents of Israel expect this after being attacked daily. Avraham, what do you say?
There's three main areas that Hezbollah is mainly in control and takes advantage of the human shield. One is South Lebanon, that IDF is very focused on. And two, that IDF is right now currently not shooting at all. And we're threatening to shoot, and we'll see if we can walk the walk. And those are the Bekaa, the northeast part of Lebanon, and Beirut, as you mentioned. And if we do not hit the Bekaa and Beirut, Hezbollah will not collapse. Hezbollah will not be damaged enough for the Lebanese government to take action against them, and will be deemed to stay in this status of a low-scale war where my children are home and sirens happen every day.
Now let's discuss the international arena. Avi, what can you say about the latest from the UN Security Council regarding the situation in Lebanon?
I'm not surprised that it is France who chose to ask the convening of the Security Council, because France lives already for decades in an illusion that they are still the patrons or the protectorate of Lebanon, which was about 100 years ago, or a little bit less, 80 years ago. And they still believe that it's a nice little country, mostly Christian, French-speaking, and somehow it is theirs to protect. And this is, of course, a ridiculous pretension, because we see now what Lebanon is, fragmented among many tribes, with predominant Shiite population and Hezbollah. But France is living in its dream of being able to influence events in Lebanon. And this is why they called for a Security Council meeting. I am sure, Sivan, that we will enjoy the support of the United States, because without the okay of the United States, we would not have undertaken such a vast operation in Lebanon. It's obvious that we have the backing of the United States, so there is no danger of seeing France or other countries for that purpose, like China or Russia, pushing for an anti-Israeli declaration, or pushing for a declaration demanding an immediate ceasefire and withdrawal. So we will continue our operation, and they will continue to talk in New York.
Well, so France is the one involved, and we see Emmanuel Macron saying that nothing justifies IDF's expansion deeper into southern Lebanon. Really? Nothing justifies it? Is that what he really thinks? Do you believe that?
I have lost all my attempts to understand what goes into the head of Macron. I mean, where was he all these weeks when all our northern part of Israel was bombarded day and night by the Hezbollah, when our soldiers were killed by Hezbollah terrorist attack with drones and rockets? Not a word. I didn't hear Macron. Nothing. This didn't happen. He wakes up only when his dream of the French protectorate Lebanon seems to him to be in danger. And I think it's outrageous that not only France, but many countries in Europe have not raised their voice and have not said, not told the truth, that Israel is defending itself against Hezbollah attack. Because this is the situation. And were it not for this attack, Israel would not have taken to the offensive. And I think we did the right thing. We should not be like sitting ducks and waiting for the Hezbollah to attack us. We take now the initiative, we push them back, and France may like it or not like it. And for us, this makes no difference at all. We will go forward, and France will stick to its position and will continue to ask for anti-Israeli measures, and it will not help, because again, we will have the American veto on every such condemnation or resolution against Israel.
Avraham, if Israel does indeed expand strikes into Beirut, what kind of response should we expect from Hezbollah, do you think?
Oh, well, since schools are already closed and we're already running to shelters every time there's sirens, I don't think it could get much worse. And the advantages are immense. I think we must continue fighting Hezbollah. And the goal is a strategic weakening of Hezbollah in all areas, all across Lebanon, until Lebanon wakes up and understands that they're taken captive by Hezbollah. They're the human shield of Hezbollah. I'd like to remind Macron and the UN, Israel withdrew 26 years ago, May 25, 2000, from South Lebanon, and Lebanon had a chance to take over and take control over Hezbollah. They did not. Hezbollah kept on attacking. We went to war in 2006. After a month of fighting, we got Resolution 1701. The world, France, UN got another chance to take care of the Hezbollah problem. For 15 years, they did not stop Hezbollah one bit. Not one missile, not one rocket, not one Hezbollah fighter, not one Hezbollah post, position, tunnel, weapons depot, nothing. In 2024, we went in it for 2 months. We signed a ceasefire agreement again. We gave the world a chance. Hezbollah keeps on fighting, rebuilding, bringing weapons into Lebanon from Syria and from Iran. And now we have to find an answer. We have to respond. And sadly, the only response we have is attacking in Beirut, in the Bekaa, in South Lebanon, until Hezbollah is weakened enough for Lebanon to do something in their own country. They're the government. They should be doing the job that we're doing right now.
So I'd like to follow up on that. Where does Lebanon's government stand in all of this? Does it have any real control over Hezbollah? Avam?
They're the governing body. It's their job. Are they strong enough to do it? They're not even trying. They're saying the right things. They're not doing anything. They're saying Hezbollah is not legal. They're saying the weapons are not legal. They're telling the Irani ambassador to leave over a month ago. He just ignored them. We're not seeing any actions. We're not seeing actions because they're concerned with Hezbollah starting a civil war. That's why Israel has to continue with the support of the US, and I'd expect more support from France because we're helping the country they so support and love, which is Lebanon. Right now, what we're seeing is French support for Hezbollah, a designated terrorist organization, and that's unacceptable.
Avi, what do you think? Where does Lebanon's government stand in all of this?
Look, Lebanon's government, as was just said, is a very weak government. And I think that when we ask that the Lebanese government disarms the Hezbollah, for the time being, they are not able to do this. I think that if we weaken enough Hezbollah, and that takes time, but if we manage to weaken enough the Hezbollah, maybe then that the Lebanese government will get a chance to do that. But this is not in the foreseeable future. There are now talks going on in Washington between us and Lebanon. The Shiite community, which is the biggest in Lebanon, about 40-45% of the population, does not take part in these talks. On the contrary, they condemn them. But it is good to continue our dialogue with the Lebanese government. Why not? Israel is interested in speaking to all Arab countries, all of them, not only Lebanon. But we have a dialogue with many Arab countries already, and we wish to extend that. But of course, we must get rid of terrorist organizations like Hezbollah, like Hamas, like other organizations, which who will do whatever is possible to prevent Israel and those Arab countries reaching an accord. Hezbollah knows very well that an accord, a real agreement between the government of Israel and the government of Lebanon would signify much difficult times for Hezbollah. So they will do whatever it takes to try and to thwart these efforts by our two governments.
But in your opinion, is there any realistic path to normalization with Lebanon?
You know, I am a veteran of the negotiation with Lebanon after the first Lebanon war in 1982 and 1983. We did reach a normalization agreement then with Lebanon, but 48 hours after, the Syrian Hafez al-Assad, who was then in power, imposed their veto, and the Lebanon went out of the agreement. Why do I tell you this story? To illustrate the difficulties there is to reach an agreement with the Lebanese government. You can reach an agreement, but will it be implemented under pressure this time, not from Syria, but from Hezbollah, from Iran, from other enemies of Israel? I don't know. But you know, you lose nothing by trying. You lose nothing by talking. If at the same time you take the military measures necessary in order to inflict as much damage and to weaken the Hezbollah as possible.
Now, Avram, I'm taking you back on the ground here. Hezbollah continues daily drone and rocket attacks. How concerning is this use of explosive drones? Are they changing the nature of this conflict? It seems that it's very hard to fight back against these types of drones.
It's definitely a tricky weapon. Basically, Hezbollah took advantage of a civilian toy and weaponized it. It's not a major strategic threat to Israel or even to IDF soldiers, but they keep on stinging us and hitting our soldiers, and sadly that has a price. I think IDF will find a way to stop them by more passive defensive methods, as well as technology that will improve and be able to stop that weapon too. And we'll advance and continue doing our job in defending the civilians here in Israel, and especially here in the north.
Well, we're seeing the civilian areas in the north under constant threat. In fact, the war has not ended for them ever since February 28th, despite the ceasefire in which the fire has not ceased. How sustainable is this situation for Israel? When will enough be enough? When will action be taken to protect citizens of Israel?
Oh, there's many actions. I think this whole battle is done to protect the citizens of Israel altogether, and especially us here in the north. I think the question is not how long we can sustain it. I think the question is, are we going in the right direction? And I think as long as IDF continues to be aggressive and attacking, we feel that there's a goal, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. And when we're passive, when we're slow, when we're waiting for Lebanon to do the job, I think that's when we have a hard time here in the north and understanding why isn't IDF doing anything. As long as we hear IDF continuing, battling, and pushing Hezbollah more towards the north, I think we're satisfied with what's going on.
And let me ask you both a question. Are Israel's hands tied until President Donald Trump unties them? Can Israel act independently, Avraham?
That the present offensive in the present Israeli offensive in Lebanon is with the agreement of President Trump. We had, as you said, we had our hands tied for a month now in Lebanon because the Americans wanted to limit our operations. But now that they encounter difficulties in their negotiations with Iran, the Israeli offensive in Lebanon serves also American interests to put pressure on Iran, because Iran is very worried about this offensive of ours in Lebanon, which aims to weaken and maybe to destroy Hezbollah, if that would be possible. So that I believe that we have a limited time in case of an agreement. I think that if an agreement between the US and Iran is reached, then I believe the American will ask us to stop our operation, or at least to not progress in our operation in Lebanon. So we have to take into consideration that we may have a time limit on that military operation, and we have to act as fast and decisively as possible in the time which we have at our disposition.
Avraham, what do you think? How directly would you say is Iran involved in Hezbollah's current operations with everything that they have going on?
Iran is still very much involved. I think in the first place, no one here believed that the negotiations with Iran will have any fruit. We think it's a futile practice or effort, and not sustainable in any way. Therefore, the time we waited was wasted, and I think it's about time that we put the negotiations aside, understand that Iran is not going to give up the triple threat of nuclear weapons, of ballistic missiles, and the proxies surrounding Israel, and we have to eliminate the threats, and that's not going to happen by negotiations.
And how does this potential U.S.-Iran deal that everybody's talking about, how does that impact the situation in Lebanon, in your opinion?
I think it does affect what U.S. wants from Israel. I think it doesn't affect what we have to do. Israel has to defend its citizens. Civilians of Israel have a right to live safely, and that's going to happen one way or another, with an agreement with Iran or without an agreement with Iran. Hezbollah has to be eliminated from being a threat on Israeli civilians.
Avi Pazner and Avraham Levin, thank you very much for all of your input.
Thank you very much, Sivan.
And now a word from our partners.
The State of Israel announces the year of Od Yoter Tov, 0% income tax for New Olim. You read that right. 0% income tax for New Olim for those who make Aliyah in 2026. And this is in addition to the existing benefits for New Olim in employment and beyond. It's simply Od Yoter Tov. 100% Zionism, 0% income tax. Now is the time to make Aliyah. For more details, visit the Ofik Israeli website.
And just to recap what we've been talking about, the latest headlines from Israel. Israel orders expanded strikes in Lebanon. The Israeli north is continuously under fire. The U.S. and Iran trade strikes as the talks stall. And 2 teens were injured in a car ramming attack. That's a wrap for this edition of ILTV on the Hour, broadcasting live from Israel and the heart of the Middle East. We're here every hour on the hour with the latest breaking news, in-depth reports, and exclusive insights into the stories shaping the region and the world. I'm Sivan Raviv. Thank you very much for watching.